I'm going to give you a little bit of history first. I first learned about the ALN and ISO 55000 in a meeting at GSA with Jim Dieter and Jack Dempsey to discuss a draft executive order that would have required federal agencies to adopt ISO 55000. This was back in 2015, and some of y'all may remember that back then men were expected to wear pants that matched their jackets. The executive order didn't go anywhere at the time, but Jim maintained, and I later developed an interest in finding a way to engage senior federal policymakers, either in the White House or in Congress, to require the adoption of the standard. And let me just say quickly, adopting the standard is what we in the ALN think is the best way to advance asset management, particularly among organizations that are starting out from a fairly low level of awareness of it. So that's, when I say ISO 55000, it's kind of a synonym for asset management. In 2018, as Moshe mentioned, at our Fall Leadership Week event, we presented a very early proposal for developing a national asset leadership strategy as a way to engage the appropriate parties in all sectors to develop a national approach for addressing our nation's infrastructure and other asset deficiencies. We invited interested parties to join in with us in developing that strategy, and I'm very pleased to note that Grant Thornton stepped up to partner with us in that work and has continued to do so. Beginning after the conference, beginning the next year in early 2019, we sat down with Grant Thornton and had a series of meetings to define the elements of this national asset leadership strategy. We wanted to use, as much as we could, the same elements that were part of ISO 55000. And the result of that work was published in a very nice brochure in August of 2019, and we called it the National Asset Leadership Strategy Part 1, the Foundation. A presentation on that document was presented at the 2019 Asset Leadership Week in October 2019. Now, again, mostly following ISO 55000, the NALS Foundation consisted of 6 elements that will sound very familiar to you. First, national objectives. Jim talked about those when he gave his talk. And we came up with some sort of model national objectives based on the kinds of things that we're aware are in laws and regulations, things like clean air, clean water, public safety, things like that. The one part of the NALS elements, or the one NALS element that was not included in ISO 55000 was taxonomy, which Jim also mentioned. And the reason for that is that ISO 55000 is written to organizations, and it assumes that each organization has its own asset taxonomy. However, when you're approaching all organizations in the nation, you have to establish a common taxonomy just so that you can communicate across those different other organizations. Stakeholders, very important. And stakeholders, we did a lot of work on that, and we have some detailed descriptions of the different kinds of stakeholders, both internal and external. Scope, what's the scope of the nation's assets? Well, basically, it's pretty much everything. Asset management objectives. When you think about, those are objectives for the assets themselves. The condition of the assets, how much it costs to operate the assets, and so forth. And then finally, and this was really important, is effective asset management systems. Effective asset management systems are the expected outcome of implementing ISO 55000. Now, other people may have other ways to have effective asset management systems, but as I mentioned earlier, we think that ISO 55000 is the most reliable path forward for organizations that are just getting started. So after the 2019 event, copies of the NALS Part 1 document were distributed to each member of the House Oversight and Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and also the House Oversight and Reform Committee. We also distributed copies to various Senate offices. Earlier this year, we began working on how to implement this foundational document and decided that the best way to proceed was according to different sectors. For example, transportation, water, wastewater, healthcare, energy, and so forth. The reason that we decided to do that is because when you think about approaching Congress, that's how you have to approach Congress, according to committees and subcommittees. And each of these groups, particularly at the subcommittee level, specialize in a particular sector. And so you can't, there's not like one congressional body that can pass a law that covers everything. You have to deal with the different sectors.